look at flanking it on the left and right side of the.
Whenever we have audio, it's pretty lousy. You know, we use the laptop audio.
Oh no, the audio blows. All right.
Well, let me think about it. Where's the?
I
There we
know,
go.
part of my list. Why do I even talk to you? No, I create my own projects and then,
I didn't bait you on that one.
All right. I have come to terms with the
Take a
fact
look
this
real
is
quick.
it for tonight. That's okay. Let's get rolling. So, patents, copyrights, trademarks. What's there to know about them? Well, it's a lot of stuff. It's very confusing. You could easily teach a whole course on this. I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to try not to. If you guys have any questions, just stop me at any point. I've been studying this stuff for quite a while, the past few months. My goal is to eventually file a trademark and a few different patents in order to protect something that I've actually been creating through here at KES. So, you know, I thought I'd take all the knowledge I've learned from it and bring it back here, in case anyone's interested in what's going on with it. So, let's get rolling into it. Patents. What's there to know about them? Well, there are actually a few different types of patents. They have some very different names that are descriptive, and there are some very obscure patents that you never think they actually were a patent. So, they all have different amounts of time associated with them for how long they're actually valid for. A patent isn't just a go-lucky, you know, hey, this is going to last you forever, unlike copyrights, or basically, thanks to Walt Disney. They last roughly between 15 to 20 years, but we'll get into that here in a second for how long they last. They all also cover very different fields, and some are way more common than others. We'll get into that right now. So there's the utility patent, which is the most common patent. 90% of all patents are actually utility patents. So a utility patent is a very broad sense for a broad term for what a patent can be, because you can go very specific with a patent, or you can go as broad as you want. And you'll see some patents that describe like the concept of doing something, and they'll get approved, and you'll read that and see, well, wait, there's like 600 ideas underneath this patent. There's no way they can try and claim ownership over all these different ideas, but that happens more often than not. It's by far the most broad, and 89% of all, this statistic, by the way, is from 2013 through the United States Patent and Trade Office, the USPTO. This stats record from them, 89% of all of these utility patents are approved. Doesn't mean it's on the first try, or the second try, or the third try. It just means that this percentage are actually approved. So let's get back into it. Utility. This covers the process of machines. Well, it covers machines, processes, which can be like this is how something is done. A workflow, which is sometimes different than a process. This can be a spreadsheet or like an actual diagram explaining the general concept of how something will be done. The composition, and really anything that's manufactured. So if you can physically make something, you can put a utility patent on it and protect it. Utility patents are good for 20 years. There's a lot of asterisks on this one. You can file to have extensions put on it, but they're not always granted, and it's extremely hard to get those. Also, they don't always last the full amount of time. Lauren. A lot of them actually can be brought up into litigation and have the patent examined under like court. In this situation, it can be like ruled that this patent is too broad, or in some cases unconstitutional, and the patent will actually be revoked at that point. So then it falls into what's called the public domain, which means literally anyone can then use it at that point. Similar to what you're doing, Ben, how all those patents fell into the public domain, anyone can do it at that point. You don't need anyone's permission, you don't have to pay royalties, you don't have to get a license, you can just use it. That's great for a lot of technology that we have. For example, the blinker, right, that's on the car that we all take advantage of today. Back in the 70s, I believe it was Chrysler, they had a patent on it. Not the 70s, it was the 30s. They had a patent on it. People had to get licenses for that technology up until the 50s when the patent expired. Now everyone uses it, and it's a common safety standard today. Same thing with the airbag and the seatbelt. Everyone had patents on it, and everyone licensed it from everyone else. It's just how things work. AMD and Intel, for example. Intel has this technology we call Thunderbolt, right? It's that little lightning bolt adapter that's on the side of your computer and is super fast. They license it to AMD, and AMD will license something back to them out of a common courtesy. Because if they didn't, then nothing would really get done. and that's also how you get your standard to be broader in the market. So these also require maintenance fees. So a maintenance fee is you have to pay the government to keep protecting your patent. This one has 3-year increment maintenance fees. It's on the very next slide. What you are protected under with this patent is no one's allowed to manufacture, no one can distribute, no one can sell, or really use your invention without your permission. And the permission comes via a license. So you have to give them a license, and the license lasts as long as you want. You can even put a clause in there saying, if you get an email from me saying you can't use it, then your license is revoked. And that legally stands up in court. But patents aren't all-in magic things that are going to deter companies from using it. Basically, it is a license to sue. So if someone infringes upon your patent, that's the best way I could explain it. If someone infringes upon your patent, you can send them what's called a cease and desist letter, telling them that, hey, this is infringing upon my intellectual property, stop it or I'm going to sue you. And large companies will ignore this and continue going on their merry way. Then you can sue them at that point, and if you have enough money, you can take them into court and try and win at that point. If you win, then either they'll pay you a certain amount of money in damages, or you can force them to buy a license from you at whatever price you set. Or you can choose to not give them a license and then basically force them to stop selling whatever product it is. But it's extremely hard to go after really large companies. This is the most valuable and it's the strongest patent by far because it covers so much information. It covers such a broad spectrum of different technologies. So if you were going to try and get an investment for a company, for example, the utility patent by far is the most valuable because the utility patent is the strongest of all of the 3 patents that we're going to talk about. Initially, it costs $330. That is the first-time filing fee. Most patents are actually rejected on the first file, on your first attempt. That is to encourage the actual patent to have more defined, more of a definition to it, quote unquote. So basically, if your wording is too broad, or they don't like it, or if it wouldn't be if the patent would not be strong enough to stand up in a courtroom, basically to defend itself, they'll reject it and ask you to rewrite the patent and resubmit it in order to make it stronger. The fun thing about a utility patent is the very second that you submit the patent and the patent office gets it, they'll send you a letter saying, hey, we've received your patent. You may now put on all of your products patent pending. So the way that works is if you file a patent and say, Ben, here's my idea, he's like, I'm going to go steal that idea, I'm going to file a patent too. It's a race. Whoever gets their application to the patent office first, they win. Even if the first person, their application is rejected, right, they have up to a year to fix their application, resubmit it, and then they can keep going through that rejection process until it's actually approved or they give up and they pull it from the stack. But all while that's happening, Ben won't be able to file his patent on the same technology or extremely similar technology. It creates a huge legal mess. And there are ways to get around it, but that's typically where patent attorney comes into play. So yeah, it's very, very complicated. Oh yeah, the maintenance fees are $890, and this is every 3 years. It is not a standard rate of this. It's not standard. 980. And it increases at a curve. So 980 is for the first 3 years. The second 3 years is roughly 12, then 15, then 17, and then it goes up from there. So this is by far the cheapest of all the patents that we'll see. So this is cheap compared to what the other patents are. And also, this isn't really that much money if you think about it. $330, and you can federally guarantee that no one's going to steal your invention. That's pretty worth the risk for it. Also, these patents take between 6 months and a year to be approved. So you'll file it, and 6 months later, you either hear back yay or nay. More likely than not, a nay. Then you resubmit it, and roughly 6 months to a year later, you'll hear back yay or nay. The second time, most of the time, it's a yay, then a nay. So now we get into the design patent. So design patent's kind of weird. Think really Apple or Sony with this. Apple actually sued, I believe it was Samsung, over the curved bezels and edges on their smartphone because Samsung put it on their phone, and Apple claimed that they were infringing upon their design patent to have curved edges on something, right? Which we think is dumb, but in Apple's patent, they're very specific on the arc and the degree at which, like, the curve is in all these things. And Samsung was infringing upon that patent. So they took them to court, and I believe they won. But it covers the aesthetics. 8 to 9% of all patents filed a year are design patents. So going from about 90%, I believe it was, 90% down to 8 to 9%, that is a huge drop. These are extremely specific, usually. Sometimes you can have more vague or broad design patents. Most of the time they're very specific, saying, I want to patent like the Apple logo or whatever. And at that point, they're trying to cover a very specific way they want things done. Design patents can also cover like schematics for a vehicle and specific types of things, ways that things are done. But the utility patent is a better use for it, by far. 70 to 80% of design patents are actually approved, and a lot of them are approved on the first try as opposed to the second try because they are so specific. The ones that are more broad are the ones that are rejected, and some people don't refile after that because it's just an intellectual art thing. Yeah, these cover any design artistically, so the look, the feel, how things sound. In fact, Harley-Davidson has a patent on the exact decibel frequency at which the motor emits a sound. So you can't try and make a motor that sounds exactly like a Harley. That is way against the law. Yeah, they cost typically $1,200. This is before you get a lawyer. So before you get a lawyer, it's $1,200. That's way more expensive than the utility patent, and we're not even getting into things with there. When you get a lawyer, most of the time you will need a lawyer for a patent like this. You're looking at $5 grand easily for it. It's expensive. Would you mind closing the door? Thank you. I didn't know it was some kind of community event outside today.
Yeah,
It's a children's night.
Take care.
Was it from community?
Threw me off for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a good example of the design patent, you have I gave Apple. Sony has a design patent on how the PlayStation 4 looks, for example, the weird sandwich design for the Pro, for example. There's three tiered stacks like that. That's a design patent. Microsoft has patents, a ton of design patents on the Surface. Their Surface design of line of laptops, and how their hinge is supposed to look and operate and feel. Yeah. Then there's a plant patent. Now this is exactly what it sounds like. This is a patent on asexually reproducing plants. That's right. It has its own separate field just for asexually reproducing plants. So certain plants that do not reproduce, a whole bunch of farmers, they'll go out and buy corn seed for a year, and they'll grow this corn, for example, and then it won't reproduce. It's just dead after that. You have to go buy more seeds from this company. That does not fall into this plant patent because it's not technically asexually reproducing. Yeah, these are the most rare by far. The statistic I read is that back in the 1930s when these type of patents first came out, after 18 years, only 750 of these patents have been filed. Roughly 1,200 are filed a year. That just goes to show you how rare it is. But then again, this is getting into bioengineering and things like that with plants. So it is quite a diverse field, to say the least. Yeah, it covers plants and things in the biofield. They cost the most by far. They start between $3.5 to $4 grand. That's where the price starts from, and that's where the myth that patents cost tons of money comes from. Everyone thinks, oh my God, a patent's going to cost me $4 or $5 grand without a lawyer. No, it's a plant patent, not a utility patent. If you're going to file a patent on a plant, yeah, you're going to spend a lot of money. But if you're going to file a patent on a new way that your toaster functions, right, it's not going to cost you that much. But you have to be very specific. These last 20 years, which is a long time for a patent to last. Oh, I didn't mention on this one. It's not up here, but these last 15 years. Yeah. The maintenance fees are $720 to start. They can be far more expensive based on how much the how many times you had to resubmit the patent, or how vague the patent is, and things like that. It comes down to like a very scientific equation to try and figure it out. When I say equation, I mean it comes down to basically how specific the patent is for the plant, how hard is it to get something similar to, versus if it's like more of a generic thing. Or if it is a, Luke said if it was a mutation, not a mutation or some kind of crossbreed, it all determines a different type of maintenance fee. Really, really interesting. So this brings us into trademarks. So trademarks, patents, and copyrights are all different and similar with their own respects. So I like trademarks. I think they're interesting, that's for sure. Like, for example, someone's trademarked the cloud. So the cloud, TM. Another one is working for the man, TM. Those are just kind of fun things, but you never would think that they're actually trademark terms. Another one is like write once, run anywhere. That's a trademark for Java. It's a trademark for Oracle, the company that owns Java. You can trademark phrases, you can trademark individual words, you can trademark an image, for example, a logo, a design, whatever you want, really. But sometimes it's better to copyright something than it is to trademark it. Because if you trademark it, it only has a specific shelf life. After that point in time, all bets are off. It can go back into the public domain and then it's free for anyone to use. So they start at $275 just for a generic trademark. Now, there isn't very much information on this slide, and that's on purpose. Some of it's better said than like written on here. A wall of text would be kind of hard to look at. So there's different categories you can file for a trademark in. So a different category, for example, is like computers, software. Those are different categories. You know, like education, sports. Those are 4 different categories. If you want to have your trademark applied to all 4 of those, you have to spend $225 for every category on top of the $275. So it stacks up really quickly to try and cover it in all these different categories. Some trademarks easily cost 10 grand if you want to file it in a whole bunch of very specific categories. Mind you, this is just in the United States. If you wanted to file it internationally, way more expensive, and it's a lot harder to do. Yeah. If you have a trademark, for example, you can say Amazon.com, for example. Amazon is a trademark of Amazon Incorporated. Since they have the trademark, they legally can take ownership of all domain names that have Amazon in the name that refer directly to their brand. So Amazon.com, Amazon.net, Amazon.org, Amazon.us, all of them. And under the U.S. law, under the, ADCA, the American Domain Name Cyber Squatting Act, they also can claim ownership over all of the common misspelled domain names. So if it's like AMZAON or something that's spelled wrong, but could refer to Amazon.com, they also legally own all those domains. So just getting a trademark on something, you now are just basically taking a shotgun and shooting into a field with all the names, and you own all of them at that point. So it's extremely powerful. If you are actually in a corporation versus an LLC, and corporations have far more power than an LLC does, so they can legally force an LLC to sell a specific a specific domain name to them, even if they both have a trademark. And a corporation will have more power than the LLC will because it's on a national scale, and they can their trademark will override and trump the LLC's trademark, even if the LLC filed first. So, for example, if Eric Stuckey wanted to try and get the rigworks.com domain name, and he reformed RigWorks as a W3, which is it's an incorporation, and he decided to trademark RigWorks, he could legally take control of the rigworks.com domain name instead of, I think it's RigWorks Solutions or something right now. It's called a hostage takeover, so you can force your way into domain names. I'm going through a process similar to it. I'm trademarking Nova right now. because I want to take control of nova.us, nova.com, things like that. In fact, United States citizens, there's some criteria for domain names. You have to fall into one of three categories to own a .us domain name. You either have to be a native-born U.S. citizen, you have to be a company that is based out of the U.S., or you have to have a company with significant pro bono ties to the United States. So basically, be doing business here, and that is actually proved and approved, proved, and you're paying taxes to the United States of America. If you fall into any of those three categories, you can take ownership of the US domain name. If you don't, someone who does can legally just take it from you for free. So it's very interesting, and all this stuff falls under trademarks. We could go into a super long talk about this if you wanted to. Am I losing any of you guys? Or am I putting anyone to sleep? You're good? Alright, cool. Is there any questions, by the way?
Example of a plant pattern.
Oh, alright, so, what is it? There is so soybeans, for example, I forget what the company is called, but,
Just Monsanto is probably a good guess.
what?
Monsanto is probably a good
Yeah,
guess.
Monsanto, there you go. They produce a certain culture of soybean, and like it creates a ton of soybeans out of it, and you can sell a whole bunch of them. But the downside is that they don't reproduce well. They reproduce, but not well. So every year you have to go back and buy more seeds from them. They have a patent on that specific culture of soybean because they do reproduce, just like the offspring are weak and die typically.
The other way of looking at it is, for example, you've come up with a genetically modified culture for corn, which
There
is the
you go.
most common example. So what most farmers do is you plant a batch, you save some aside for the next set of crops, and you sell the rest. But technically with this patent, he's not allowed to keep it aside. He has to go back to Monsanto, buy the new batch, and
Yeah.
then plant only. So that is where it's come up more recently with the genetically modified foods that's coming.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to replant what you've sown.
You have to
Okay.
sell it all and then go buy fresh, which pisses a lot of farmers off, but it's the law. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions about anything?
I was looking up at the USPTO cost,
Yeah?
and it's got a lot more detail than what you were putting up, just so you know. I mean, there is that application fee that you pay.
Yep.
Although the
Maintenance.
Well, they're breaking into three entities. You're either a normal fee or a small business fee or a micro business fee, so they get cheaper.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just read it since we're taking the pause. So, this is for utility patent, right?
Correct.
So for a regular fee is $280. I think you added what was it?
I think it was at 225. 330.
All right, fair enough. But then you must pay a patent search fee because they have to do a search on your patent and all that. The patent search fee would be $600. That's a larger number, right? Then you have to pay a patent examination fee, which is $720. And then once the issuance happens, you have to pay an issuance fee, which is $960. So you see, it's adding up. These are just fees that you must pay.
Yep.
So it's starting to add up. And by the way, if you have more than, I don't know if you guys know the independent claims and dependent claims and all that. If you have
Yep.
more than three, you get 3 independent claims. If you get more than 3 for each one, you will pay. Each claim in excess of 3. There was a fee like $400, $500. I can't find it, but you pay for each extra one. That there's some page charges, but they're kind of like more than 100 pages.
Yeah.
They're really. And then your first maintenance fee at 3.5 years is $1,600. Then it goes to 7.5 years, $3,600. 11.5 years, $7,400. So The numbers are a little bit larger than what you would have reported because there's
Yeah.
all these other fees you gotta keep paying.
Yeah, the
I mean,
information I was reading was from the 2015 archive page. I should have read the more recent page.
I'll share that with you. It's actually a big table, it's in USPTO. So it's not cheap.
7,400 is what the current maintenance rate is? I
Uh,
thought it was in the thirties, as in
No,
$30
no, no.
for micro business?
For the micro business, let me read that. So the maintenance fee, for micro business at 3.5 years, it's only $400. Then it goes to 900, then it goes to 1850. These are maintenance fees. What did you think it was?
I thought it was substantially lower, like under 100 for maintenance, but it was like quarterly thing.
Oh, this is the same, so, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I
There's
was
a lot
clearly
of-
reading a lot older statistics and like a lot older stats. And that's
Well,
all
you
I was
might have
reading.
just read one piece of it, that apparently it's not just one fee you pay.
Yeah, I must
You
have been
gotta
reading
pay
a
for
different
search,
article
you
on their
gotta pay
site.
for something else.
Like the one I was reading was a lot shorter than
It's a
what you're
government
describing.
program. It's
The only other number I can throw in is that I think we had I don't know where the heck I was, some conference or something. In order to defend the patent, by the time you make it to the court, you're about $1 million in. It's a
Wow.
very expensive, long process of a lot of haggling and debating and report writing. And I've been on the expert side of it, and that's right. I mean,
You're
even
gonna go
before you
broke.
go to court, thousands of hours are being spent between lawyer fees and expert fees and reports, because judges are looking at everything. I mean, it's a judge process until you can't come to an agreement, then it goes to court. By then, you're about $1 million.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily expensive at that
Yeah,
point.
very expensive to defend the patent.
Yeah, and sometimes even if you were to win like a lawsuit against a company for infringing on your patent, they can claim that they are uncollectible, right? The amount that's being paid out that is demanded is too large that they can't pay on, and they can file for I think it's like Title V or Title VII bankruptcy, where the company can basically reform at that point, and the old company then just dies with that huge debt, and it was all for nil. Like, you're out all that money because it's not being paid back to you, and the company can continue on going. And then they can go through the same process of just stealing your idea, and then you have to sue them again, and break the company again, and then they'll just reform. So you can get into this very ridiculous cycle of things. Sometimes larger companies that are suing smaller companies for infringing on their patent, they will just acquire them to kill them. So they will buy the company that is infringing on the patent because, like, they know like an annoyance that some companies are. They will just become not necessarily patent trolls, but patent squatters who will just create a company, let it go bankrupt, die, reform, keep stealing a patent idea, die, reform. A lot of time, they will just go ahead and acquire the company and then immediately liquidate it, sell all the assets for it, own the property that they were infringing upon, and then just basically fire everyone out. But they get them all to sign like an NDA.
That microwave going on?
Thank you, Shimo. Yeah,
Microwave is
it's a
good.
very tedious process. So now we get into copyrights. So there are a few different types of copyrights. Copyrights last a very long time. Like, thanks to Walt Disney, they last over 100 years. And the reason is because Walt Disney does not want Mickey Mouse to fall into the public domain Mickey Mouse is from the early 1900s, right? If it fell into the public domain, people could legally make Mickey Mouse porn, for example, and make money off of it, and it would ruin Mickey Mouse, which would ruin the brand for Walt Disney, right? And it would begin seriously infringing, affecting their business and their whole public image. Even though they have nothing to do with it, they're actual characters being used for things like that. So because of that, every 20 years or so, they will go to Congress and beg them to please, please, please extend it by X number of years, because this will ruin us financially if this happens. So they extend it. So now it is, the copyright lasts, I think it's 70 years plus the life of the author. And then on top of that, plus 1.5, plus it's like half the time of the, like, I initial patent filing process or something absurd like that. So basically, right now it's 70 years plus the life of Walt Disney, up to the point where he had filed it. So it's like 70 plus like 40 years at that point, right? Plus like another 20 or 30 years on top of that. It lasts a long time. So in order to make a fan fiction, a legal fan fiction or fan rendition of like Twilight, for example, it's going to happen in like the year like 2170, right? It's not going to happen anytime soon. You legally can't go ahead and have a inspired idea coming from that. Shakespeare is fine, like he's way dead and gone. Walt Disney is very dead and gone, but his company is still around, and they keep benefiting from his intellectual property. So that's why the argument keeps coming around of, well, what about this? What about this? Software can actually be copywritten. So a copyright on a piece of software will last far longer than that piece of software should ever be used. Right? If you're using a piece of software for 100 plus years, something better is around. I can guarantee it.
Or an apocalypse has just happened.
Or
I'm-
you're a satellite.
Oh God, yeah, a satellite.
Machine that can use.
Sputnik.
Yeah, this is something.
So it covers literary works of art. So this is like books, poems, epics. No, it's another type of poem. Sound. So like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, your favorite song that you listen to on the radio. The startup sound for Windows 98, 95, whatever, Windows 7. Apple's login sound. All those different little chimes that your phone makes, those are all eligible for copyright. And they don't even necessarily have to file per se for a copyright. They can, being the original creator, you can just put a copyright on it on your own. But if you want it to be legally defended, you should file for a copyright through the U.S. government. I don't know if I put the price up here for it. I did not. Well, crap.
Look it up.
Thank you. They're not cheap. That's for sure. There's a lot of people, a lot of companies who file these go kind of sue happy.
So which of these do you intend to apply for?
What
Which of these do you want to?
if you for a logo for your company, you should file for a copyright on it, not a trademark, because the trademark's only good for about 18 years. And after that, then anyone else can use the logo for your company. Ideally, if your company is still in business after 18 years, you still want the copyright on the logo itself, so no one is using your logo on anything that they want to off the street. Like Joe's Schmo's Burgers is now using like the Bosch logo, right? That'd be bad.
Copyright is pretty cheap. It's 35 to 55 bucks.
What?
It's under 100 bucks.
Is it now? Is that including all the filing fees?
Yeah, that I don't know. I gotta go see, dig a little deeper. But it says the more useful version. The short answer is 35 to 55 bucks if you do it yourself, or 250 to 500 bucks if you hire an attorney to help.
Okay.
So even with an attorney fee, it's got to be pretty quick and very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I was reading, I guess I was reading all of my stuff. Some of the things I was reading is that copyrights that are put on, like for example, movies, those are extraordinarily expensive because they have to be extremely specific and at the same time broad, like to the storyline, but also individual characters in the plot and things like that, and that gets extremely expensive. Yeah, it covers sounds, movies, so any like Michael Bay films, for example, Transformers or whatnot, literally any movie. Visual things, so this can be like, I don't really know how to describe it, like different-
Pictures.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And dramas, so plays and whatnot. Those also fall under copyright. Copyright's domain.
Harley Davidson tried to copyright the sound of its motorcycles.
They tried copywriting it. I think they ended up just getting a patent for it.
No, because you can't quantify. I mean, you can hear it and I can hear it, but how are you gonna argue that the other one is not the same or is the same?
From my understanding, there's actually an existing patent on. They have a patent on the sound range, the decibel range, for their specific noise that the motor makes.
So that's measurable, but
Yeah,
the
that's measurable.
characteristic
But
V
you
engine
can't
sound,
artistically,
yeah,
no. Yeah.
They really wanted that, but they never did get it, I don't think.
Yeah. If it's like something that's more of an art, it falls under a copyright. If it's something more specific or tangible, it falls under a patent. and if it is a phrase or something that's better spoken that you want to protect, like your word or whatnot, that falls under a trademark. But they all, at the end of the day, are your intellectual property, and those are things you want to protect to prevent someone else from really ruining your odds at starting your company or using your company's own words against you at that point.
Quick question. So if someone's like a big name director is making a movie based off of a book, for example, are those two separate copyrights, or are those?
Good question. They're actually, so in order to actually make the movie based off the book, you need to get a license from the author of the book in order to create the movie, right? They should be two different, a lot of cases they're two different copyrights, but they're about 50-50. There are two different copyrights versus they're the same copyright. It depends on how much the actual movie director strays from the initial plot inside of, say, a book, for example.
So basically, all movies have to get their own copyright.
Yeah, oh, yeah, they're
Because
all,
they all stray.
Well, I think copyright is usually based on who creates it, so
And it's
y-
time
unless the
limited.
author is making the movie himself, then it'll automatically be a separate copyright.
The best example is Jungle Book. A couple of years ago, the copyright expired, and there are a bunch of people who lined up to make it. There's one which came out. There's one which is coming out next year. So it depends. on the-
Jungle Book.
Jungle Book.
Oh, the Jungle Book.
The first one.
So copyright for the movies is mainly to protect against reproduction.
Yep.
So that's the DVDs that you buy.
So
It's-
that's an FBI warning.
Yes, it's the
Yeah.
FBI warning, it's to
That's
prevent
exactly what
piracy.
that is. Now,
Maybe
there
we
are
just fired
copyrights
the
on an
FBI.
idea
Yeah,
of a
it's-
movie or a
Stop
script
The
of a
time
movie.
is now.
You know,
It's
like
the
a
wording
specific
you see,
storyline you
pirated
can copyright.
copy.
Oh.
Like, hey, by the way.
Hey, you should probably not do this.
So I guess also the follow-up question. So if you make sequels to a movie, those are also individual copyrights on top of that as well.
Yes, because they're their own separate work.
And they have to be licensed off of the original movie,
Off the original movie and off the original creator of the book series.
which usually isn't a problem because it's
Condone.
almost always the same people making it.
Yeah,
So would it be a
make it
royalties type situation?
Yeah, oh yeah, the author gets a huge royalty on it.
Of course.
It's like
It's a
9%.
royalty?
It's like why J.K. Rowling is one of the
She's like a
wealthiest
billionaire.
people.
Almost a billionaire.
Yeah.
She's rolling in dough.
Yeah, exactly.
You're hilarious.
So,
Yeah, so that's how the copyright game kind of works with it. But they're all very like similar and different at the same time. It's really unique, actually. It's really interesting. Like I'm not into law and whatnot, but I think this is cool. Just like looking at how you can protect what you're doing, just based off of trying to find where things fit in. Because you can easily file for a trademark, patent, and copyright all on like an invention, for example. So say I make the world's greatest new vacuum. It's like, there's the Hoover vacuum and then there's like my vacuum, the Scott vacuum. It's amazing, right?
better than Dyson.
I will, yeah, there you
You
go.
can be Dyson.
Better than Dyson, costs half the price, you know, I get 3 times the margins, whatever. So I will file a patent, a utility patent on the actual functionality of this brand new magical vacuum cleaner. I can then go ahead and file a design patent on how the vacuum cleaner looks, right? And the whole feel for it. I can file for a copyright on the name of the, not the name, I can file a trademark on the name of the actual vacuum cleaner itself. And I can file a copyright on any nomenclature that would come with that.
Could you pull a Harley and copyright the decibel of the vacuum?
Could you what?
Pull a Harley and copyright the sound of the vacuum?
Not copyright, you can put a patent on
And
it.
patent it?
I mean, you could, but oh my god.
Why would you want that?
Because it's like the Spitler Dream Machine, dude. The Spitler
It makes
Dream
no
vacuum.
noise, it sucks up all the dirt, and it costs nothing.
I can see his motto is gonna be, it sucks good.
Oh,
Copyright
It
right
really
there.
sucks.
It really sucks.
Accurate.
TM.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
We
Did you know Kettering does not have a trademark on the Kettering Advantage?
Well, they just came up with it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they should
Well, I
put a
mean-
trademark on it. You know, Trevor Bennett, for example, he owns the domain name The Kettering Advantage.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So then Kettering can basically take it over.
I mean,
Does
if-
Kettering own the name Kettering?
they don't even have a trademark on that.
I don't think you can because that
Well,
includes Kettering.
Yeah, you can-
that's
file
a
on
good
it.
question. I know that we have to ask permission, so we got permission to use the name.
And it's also Kettering, Ohio, so does that make
Well,
it
that's where it comes from.
open?
Yep, it comes down to the use for it. So actually what you can do,
The real Kettering is in
if you
Is
want
that
to
after
file
yours?
for a trademark on something, for example,
That's why it's terrible, because I'm from
Because you
Ohio,
live there.
right?
someone is not legally infringing upon the trademark.
said
They
that
can show,
community college.
No, I try real hard.
guys, if they could show legal usage, like fair usage of the actual trademark name, like the name itself. So say Kettering, like someone's got a company like, you know, Kettering Hardware or whatever in Kettering, Ohio, for example, and they have something showing that like, yeah, this is being used, like it's fair usage for like my company, right? And then say Kettering Tomorrow trademarks Kettering, and then they try and send a cease and desist letter to them saying you can't use the name Kettering, pay us a royalty, because they just want to pull out the bullies, for example. They legally wouldn't have any leverage or ground on him because it's fair use. He was using the name beforehand, for example, and he was using it in a different field. He was using it for his company. So any document with the name Kettering on it that can prove that he was like doing any business, so basically any receipt, any like flyer that he sent out, any postcard, they all legally can say, don't sue me at that point. So there's little realms like that that you can kind of use to prevent yourself from getting attacked by someone who files a trademark. The same does not happen with patents. So I know we're about to run over on time here. I'm going to give it this last little snippet. So Snapchat, right, came out in 2011. 2011 is when they did their initial like beta launch. 2012 is when they officially launched. 2013, someone filed a patent on their exact technology. 2014, they sued Snapchat. 2015, they won the lawsuit. Even though Snapchat had the technology beforehand.
First to file.
What?
First to file.
Yeah, 'cause they were first.
How was that? Did they overlook that?
What?
How did they?
They just didn't bother.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. What exactly did they patent?
they patented the, what was it?
It was a
The
self-destructing
self-destructing,
message.
message or image.
But what about it? did they
So when
The
you send,
self-destructing part where it shows up, stays for a certain amount of
So what
Okay,
you're
and
saying
then
is
destroys
all
itself.
patent
There's
lawyers do
something-
not own
No,
smartphones.
there's something wrong here because you cannot patent something that's already in public domain.
but they won the lawsuit, and it was not for.
No, so there's something else in here.
But it
That's
wasn't
what I'm
public
asking.
domain.
It
No,
wasn't.
if a Snapchat is using it, it's already public.
No,
It's
the
already
technology
out.
was still, the technology was private. It was not publicly available technology.
If it was open source, it'd be different.
If it was open source, it'd be way different. Since it was closed source
Oh,
proprietary,
so it was a trade secret.
it was a trade secret. If it was
But they
open
didn't,
source,
but they didn't apply for a trade secret on that, right?
no, they didn't. You don't apply for
Did you
trade
talk about
secrets.
trade
You
secrets?
can
by the
apply
way,
for
or did
You
you-
don't typically try to apply, like, most people don't apply for trade secrets just out of, like, fear. But I did not talk about trade secrets.
Depends on
Okay,
what-
that one
what
is
your trade
goofy,
secret
I
is.
still don't understand. Trade secret is almost like,
It is not a patent, but it is like documented
But
secrets.
Look at it.
right, but
So-
does it give you a protection if somebody reverse engineers your trade
Yes,
secret?
you're protected from reverse engineers. It gives you protection over people from reverse engineering it,
And then
um,
don't patent.
and also people from stealing the idea. If they steal it, right, and they try and patent it, if you have a trade secret legally filed, right, it'll be rejected because it was a trade secret
So
filed
it's
by
almost
someone
like a
else.
secret patent?
It's a
that's
secret
not
patent, but
okay.
it's not a patent.
Something
So,
like Coke's formula, or?
yes, Coke's formula, actually Coke's formula is not it's not a legally filed trade secret. It is a privately held trade secret. In fact, at one point, there were like 6 people who knew the whole formula, but they all knew different pieces, and they were all split up, right? This is back in the 90s. It was so hard to try and get the formula right that like the trade secret was almost lost because no one could figure out what it was.
So is that the Snapchat thing, that they actually held the
It was
trade
a
secret
non-filed
without
trade
applying
secret.
it? So- Okay, then you're,
Yeah, and then they
then
lost.
you're exposed, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're exposed, yeah.
If you want to file for a trade secret and basically have legal, like a really weird legal protection, you can do that. I didn't talk about it in here. I really should have. I forgot about it. Whoops. But yeah, that's a whole other really weird little realm. I definitely wouldn't mind doing another more
It's
in-depth
good,
talk on
it's
some of
good
this stuff.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, because this is all it does not necessarily directly apply to all of us today, but as engineers and scientists, like we all are, or hope to be.
Copyright does.
What?
Copyright does.
Yeah, but not like directly today per se. But I mean, you could try and copyright something today if you wanted to.
But you don't have to file for a copyright for it to be
Yeah.
upheld.
Yes, you can just put a copyright on it, but it's like not a super strong copyright. It still applies, but it's like
They're public
it's your own personal copyright. There's also a thing called copyleft, which legally entitles you and has your name on it, right? But it is free for anyone else to use, but they must distribute your name on it, right, when they give it out. So all GNU GPL software has what's called the copyleft on it. So it's free open source software, but they have to give credit to everyone who's worked on it along the process. It's called copyleft. So your name is permanently on the work, and if they violate copyleft, they're going to be sued by the GNU Foundation, which is this multi-billion-dollar foundation that is funded by like donations, and they try and uphold that in court in order to defend the rights of creators. All right, it is like 9:05, I like to say, so that is the end of KES. Does anyone have any questions? Or I didn't really mean to like lecture at you guys for as much as I felt like it was a lecture, but yeah, that is like a very quick and dirty introduction to patents, copyrights, and trademarks, and a little bit of trade secrets, I guess. So, thank you guys for coming. It was a pretty skeletal crew today.
Yeah, I got some people now.
Yeah, we did. I highly encourage all of you guys to come back next week because Ben and Alan will be doing their their financial presentations for their projects, and hopefully we'll be getting approved or slightly modified and then approved. Yeah.
No.
So I invite all of you guys to come back, and thank you guys all for coming tonight.
Thanks, that was good stuff.
Thanks.